let's dive in. I think
Okay.
the most natural place to start is your next project coming out, which is Suicide Squad. I'm very excited about that.
They call you Peacemaker?
I cherish peace with all my heart. I don't care how many men, women, and children I need to kill to get it.
I thought you were the crazy one.
I am.
I think obviously this is the second Suicide Squad movie, but in so many ways it feels like its own unique beast. So I'm curious what you can tell me about the role, and like in your own words, what is James Gunn's vision for this? Because we know he's got a singular vision at all times.
Absolutely. Well, I, raised on comic books and having been loving and collecting comics my whole life. I've always been obsessed with the DC villains and the Marvel superheroes. And so the DC villains, especially the more obscure ones, have always had a special place in my heart. So when I found out that I was going to get to be a part of the Suicide Squad, not only was I like just over the moon that I was going to get to be, because I know that as members of the Suicide Squad, they're not traditionally good guys doing a good mission. They're bad guys kind of being coerced into doing a good mission. So, all of those reasons, I was doing backflips and still am, that I get to be a part of this. And then James's vision for telling the story, not only did I know he was the perfect person to make this film because he's James Gunn. He understands how to tell epic stories. He's also the guy who I think is, he's in the top form right now of his craft. And he has this ability to take characters that in so many regards we look at as being despicable, as discarded, as throwaway, and then finding some gem of redemption within them, which is something I think that all of us, without all of a sudden shifting to anything too philosophical or whatever, emotional, is like we're all struggling to do that right now. We watched that happen around us for the last several years, like people that are our neighbors or even our own family, God forbid, doing things that were really despicable and getting behind things that were really terrible and trying to find some connectivity to that. Because if we don't, we're fucked. Like if we can't, we're lost. And I think James is the guy that can do that.
You are essentially one of the, I feel like, few actors who could probably fill out a Suicide Squad with just the characters that you've played. We recently saw you again on The Flash.
2 is always deadlier than 1. Flash! I knew it was just a matter of time.
Bad timing for you, Kadabra.
Yeah, those would be nanotech nullifying cuffs, so no hocus pocus this time. Hey, what's up with all your new toys?
Magician never reveals his secrets.
Your comic book fandom is well documented, so I'm curious, when that role, The Flash, Abracadabra, comes into your sphere, I mean, is this something that you feel like you're more actively pursuing? Do people just know to bring these sort of roles to you? How does that work?
It's a mystery to me, Cameron. It really is like, yes, I do believe in the power of manifestation and goal. Like you look in my office, I have my goal. I'm always got goals and dreams. And I believe it's important to like make contracts with ourselves and to write things down that we want to achieve. And so working in the genre space, the science fiction space, the comic book adaptation space is something I have actively dreamed about, but to say that it's something that I've actively pursued other than doing my very best when I was given an audition is hard to quantify, because it's not like there's some business model where you can say, I'm going to pursue comic book movies. Like I don't have that power. I don't have that connection in Hollywood. I don't even have an agent or manager. I haven't in 4 years. So I go about, when people reach out to me to audition for things or they want me to be a part of their project, I'm at the, for lack of a better term, mercy of the fates, what comes my way comes my way. So I wish I knew, other than I try not to question the fact that like my first big break was in a comic book movie. The first time I was on a film set was in a comic book movie. I've always felt that my knowledge of comic books and the serious issues, subjects, and character arcs that can be explored through comic books in particular, but genre in general, are a gateway to incredible but also meaningful storytelling. And so I take that stuff very seriously, even though at the end of the day it's kind of silly. I love it, and I think my knowledge and passion for it has probably served me when it comes time to audition or be able to make knee-jerk reactions on set, solve problems. But it's crazy. People like you, so you've really chosen this path, and I go, the things that I choose are to take care of my mental health every day, to try and be the best person that I can be, to fight for, causes and issues that matter to me, to try and, those are things that like I have some control over when I wake up every day. Like, what am I going to do? When it comes to the blessings and gifts I've been given as a working actor, The Flash, like, I will be on it. Like, when I got the first opportunity, I was a casting director who just really thought I was a good actor, who I'd auditioned for numerous times, David Rappaport, and he couldn't get me hired on some of his other superhero projects. And then he finally got me Abracadabra. I was so excited.
How do you approach a character like Abracadabra then versus, obviously different property altogether, but someone like Kurt in the Ant-Man movies?
Like a ghost.
Like Baba Yaga. Baba Yaga, the witch. They tell stories to children to frighten them. You know Baba Yaga?
Whoever stole it, we need to find it.
The woods? Baba Yaga! What do you mean, the woods?
The Muir Woods.
Baba Yaga, come at night, little children sleep.
Where you have this comics history. I mean, are you concerned about bringing that to the screen? How do you balance that?
Sure. So there is a formula that would be like my TED Talk today. Okay, when I approach character work, when I do my acting, I was trained on the stages of Chicago theaters, and I developed an approach to building character and approaching text that is the script is my guide. It's everything. My director and their vision is what I am there to fulfill. And therefore, I break down and examine and explore the script, the character, their backstory, their relationship to the other characters in the story, their voice, the way their body moves, all of that work, whether it's, The Glass Menagerie by Tennessee Williams, at a theater in Chicago, whether it's Animals, a micro budget indie film that we shot in Chicago, whether it's, Kurt and Ant-Man for, a Marvel Studios picture, Abracadabra for The Flash. To me, the work that goes into that is exactly the same. Now, in the performance of it, it's my job, I believe, to familiarize myself as best I can and open my ears and heart and mind as best I can to the vision that the director has for the tone and energy of the story they're trying to tell. Those are micro shifts. The camera's a just incredible magnifying glass. So these micro shifts and micro adjustments in tone, I kind of put myself in the hands of the director and I allow them to guide that. Otherwise, the preparation, the work, and the execution is almost identical, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm. You don't think I will? You don't think I will? No. No, I wouldn't. That's why I'm not gonna leave it up to me. Heads, you gotta keep your head. Tails, not so lucky. So, you wanna tell me about the Joker? Let's go again.
I don't know anything!
You had mentioned Dark Knight. Obviously, I want to dive back into that again briefly. First film role, major production in Chicago, of course, which is great. Can you take me into your headspace of just walking onto that set for the first time? Was it an overwhelming experience?
Try to put yourself in the shoes of an actor who a few years before had thought they would never act again.
Mm-hmm.
You're looking at a guy in his 20s who had gotten clean and sober and had basically felt like he'd burned every bridge in both friendships and business, and who had worked very hard just to be able to hold down a day job, stay sober, and start working on tending to his mental health. All of a sudden, he's getting to be in some of the best theater productions in Chicago, which is like this huge gift that he never thought was going to happen. Then he gets to do a TV commercial with an amazing independent film director and starts getting really paid for being an actor. And then this motherfucker is standing on the set of Christopher Nolan's sequel to Batman Begins, just a few blocks away from the place where he goes to buy his comic books every week, and on the same block where he used to park his car sometimes and sleep in it when he was a homeless junkie. And I have to speak about myself in the third person, not because I have a dissociative disorder, but because it's that surreal. I literally walk into hair and makeup, not knowing what the F I'm doing, so scared, so excited. I'm going to be a part of this iconic story. And I walk into the hair and makeup trailer, and it literally, in the morning, the first time I've ever been on a film set, I meet, sitting in their makeup chairs, Heath Ledger, Christian Bale, Gary Oldman, Aaron Eckhart, Maggie Gyllenhaal, Nestor Carbonell. I'm sure I'm leaving someone off, but like, holy fucking shit, dude. I was just like, so that's that. I mean, imagine, I don't know. Just put yourself in those shoes of that kid. And I can go back to those moments and I just vibrate right now, like thinking about it with like this insane excitement. And it still gives me anxiety looking back on that moment and being so filled with, oh my God, I can't believe this is happening. And the deepest well of gratitude, because for all intents and purposes, that should never have happened. I should never have gotten that chance. And I don't take my privilege lightly when I say I know that I was given a second shot at life, that a lot of people, most people who go into psychotic episodes, who have to fight with, radical and deep depression and then severe addiction issues, most don't come back from the other side. So the fact that I, was given that privilege and that gift, it makes it that much more surreal to me. It's crazy.
I think I want to go back to what IMDb lists as your very first credit, which is the show Early Edition, which, from doing a number of these and talking to anyone that's worked in Chicago for any amount of time, they seem to have an Early Edition credit on their IMDb.
The plaid, the scotch, you're gonna bring it up with you. Never mind, I'll go get it.
My broker says the sky's the limit. He says the Dow Jones might even hit 400 by the end of the year.
They got Roger Hornsby in there playing second base.
John Gilbert in his glorious night.
Just listed as patron number 1. Maybe there's a full backstory to the character I'm not aware of, but could you take me back to that experience?
Oh my God. So I was still in college at the time, and a legendary casting director, Jane Alderman, was casting Early Edition, and I got the chance to audition for patron number 1. I'm sure you know what Early Edition was about, but it was Kyle Chandler played a guy who got the newspaper every day the day before the news happened. Well, in this particular episode, which I believe was called Everybody Meets at Rick's or Everybody Goes to Rick's, something like that. It was actually a time travel episode, which was an anomaly for the show. So the show was actually set in the 1920s. Speaking of the 1920s, like the roaring 20s of Chicago, like Capone era Chicago. And I was a guy in a speakeasy ordering a drink. And it was literally one day, which was really about 2 hours on set, and I was so fascinated by, they had like fake cigarette machines. I remember because everyone was smoking these cigarettes, and they had, people in flapper dresses, and the actual acting was, I don't even remember. I mean, it's like literally standing in a crowded bar and going, give me another, or something like that. But what I really remember about that experience, and I hope I do get the chance to meet him at some point, was how kind Kyle was to me, considering I was a, day player. He was very, very kind. And he even said to me, and it really meant a lot to me, was that he had seen me on the monitor and that he thought I looked really cool on camera. He said, "You look really cool on camera." And I thought, wow, that's awesome. And he's such a fine actor, and he's done so much cool stuff. And it's been really neat seeing his, journey. I always hope I get to meet him at some point. But yeah, that was it. And then, sadly, my old journey kind of was derailed by my battle with addiction and my struggles. And so I did not, I didn't know I would ever act again. And then I started, once I got clean and sober, I started to get back up on stage.
This feels like a great time to talk about animals.
How much?
50.
Why would you give him all of our money if you don't know who he is, you don't know him, you don't know his stuff is good?
It's not my fault.
Man, Mama needs you to get out of the car.
You just let us go. We're not going to come back to this.
Shut up.
But, you kind of talked a little bit about this. I think that this movie obviously is one that's so personal for you, to the point that, you filmed it in Chicago, a lot of these places that you were and lived and worked and that sort of thing. I think I'm curious, like specifically when you made it, why did that feel like the right time to revisit that part of your story and tell it in this way?
So much of getting to tell stories and make films, you're at the mercy of the fates. So the reality is, when I did not think I was going to be able to act again, so in the mid 20-aughts, 2004, 2005, I just had so much creative energy, and I had such a desire to share stories with people, but I didn't think I was going to do it through acting again. So I really committed myself to writing a lot and studying writing and studying screenwriting and playwriting. I was writing short plays for theater companies like Caffeine Theater and WNEP in Chicago's Shattered Globe. And I was contributing as much as I could to things like Collaboractions, sketchbooks. But so it started as maybe it was going to be a play, and it was a short story, and it was a piece of fiction. And then it evolved into become my first screenplay, Animals. And I mean, dozens, and then ultimately something like 75 rewrites. But I felt like I had something meaningful there, and there was something that was to be said there. And then I started to try to write other screenplays. But Chris Smith, who had directed the TV commercials that I had been doing and who I really respect as a filmmaker, and I were talking, and I had told him that I was writing, and he asked to see something that I had written, and I sent him a copy of Animals in like 2012. And he said, "This is amazing. I'll help you make this. We need to get this film made." And that's what started it, to be honest. So it was like, I was writing what I knew. I was trying to share stories that I knew in my heart, but at the same time, it was just the opportunity. Do you know what I mean? Like this opportunity presented itself where somebody said to me, you should make this. And that's why.
Around that same time, if I'm not mistaken, you met a director, and I'm going to butcher it because I'm an American, but Denis Villeneuve.
You got it. Yes. So Denis Villeneuve, interestingly, go ahead and finish your question, because yes, he's changed my life. Yes.
No, I mostly was going to say, tell me about that initial meeting, that initial experience, but truly, yeah, wherever you're going to go with it.
So speaking of being, let's rewind now to the December of 2012. I had no money. I was working as an actor, but barely shoestringing it by, like barely putting together the rent. And an opportunity presented itself for me to be a part of a movie with a decent paycheck, and I didn't connect with the script, and I had a difficult time understanding what it was that I was to be doing. And I ultimately, with the advice and encouragement of a good friend in the business as well as Eve, I turned it down because I decided at that point that I would rather go put the energy into trying to make animals, even if it put me in the hole, as opposed to just getting by a few more months and not being able to give the filmmakers the quality of performance they probably needed for their film, because I just didn't connect with their material. So I was really second guessing myself as an artist, and what was I doing? I'm in LA and blah, blah, blah. And I should have been on set of that movie. I was like, why did I do that? I could at least be getting paid. I could at least be working right now. And I got a call for an audition at Barden Schnee Casting for this film that had this phenomenal cast. And I was given these sides for the scenes of this really desperate and haunted character named Bob.
You said you were drawing a map. Looks like a fucking puzzle. You tell me what you're drawing. Tell me what you're drawing.
I immediately knew who he was. I felt like I understood Bob Taylor. So and even though in the script he was written probably looking more like I look now, I think he was written in the script being bushy beard and overweight and feeling and like really messy and sloppy. I felt like Bob was more like brown wallpaper. He could blend in anywhere and didn't want anyone to notice him. So he really like would just vanish. So I created this version of the character, and I went to their office and I put the audition tape. We taped the audition, and I left, and I did the best I could do. The holidays came and went. I proposed to Eve, even though I didn't have a dime. I said, well, if you want to be with me, this is what it's going to be like. So what do you think? And she said, yes. Get back in January, I got the call that I booked the role. I fly to Atlanta, and I had at this point seen Maelstrom and Incendie by Denis Villeneuve. At that time, I had never seen an interview with him. I had never obviously met the man. I thought his name was Denis Villeneuve. So I immediately go to meet him and shake his hand, and we go into this office and we start talking, and I'm calling him Dennis, and he's too polite to correct me. And he tells me all about this character and his vision for it and what he thinks I can do and why he chose me. And we just, it was kismet from the moment we met. Friendship formed very quickly, and making the film together and the bond that we formed and the dark place that we went together, it really did forge and fire something very lasting. And he has always had been very kind and tender with me as an artist, as an actor. I think he knows about the places that I've been in the real world, and I think he knows that I'm not unwilling to revisit them if it would help tell a story. And I think that he understands me and speaks in a language that I just can hear when it comes to creative. He gives me great notes, and he, will demand a lot of me because he knows that I would want nothing less. And here we are now, 3 films later. I can't
right.
I get to be a part of what is his greatest achievement yet in cinema.
Duke's son sees too much.
This is why Jude killed them all. God in heaven.
And I think it's one of the best films I've ever seen in my life. And I think that it's a piece of cinema history. And I don't think anyone has ever seen a film like this before. I don't think they will ever see a film like it after. I think that it's visually and emotionally just unprecedented. And it's also really fun, which is quite an achievement.
I know we can't say that much more about Dune, but I think I have a two-pronged question. One is, what is your history with the story, the property, as we'll put it?
Yeah.
And the second part of that is why is Denis the right man for the job to tell this story?
I've read the book now 4 times, and I reread it right before we went into production. And every time it's a new experience for me. It's one of my favorite, not just sci-fi novels. It's a great piece of 20th century literature. And what makes the book so special is that it views every interaction, every character, every element of the narrative from so many different points of view. When you watch a Denis Villeneuve film, he's able to take you from the macro, mind-blowing expanse of the worlds that he creates down to the micro details of every character and every setting, and he can show it to you from every point of view. His characters are so multidimensional, and the way that he explores characters is so multidimensional that words like good and bad don't even come into play, and he understands that about human beings, that we are, so multi-layered. There are so many thousands of layers to our psychology, to our emotional lives, that for his imagination and his ability to show characters in such a all-encompassing way, to be combined with the world that Frank Herbert created when he wrote Dune, it's perfection. It's a dream marriage. And I also know that Denis has been dreaming about this film for decades. I mean, this is his dream project, and he has been fantasizing about the world of Dune since as long as he's been making movies. So it couldn't be a more perfect marriage.
That is so exciting to hear. I mean, in my mind, I'm like, he calls you for Dune, for Blade Runner. It's probably like, how quickly can you say yes? I imagine, right?
That's me.
Hi. You can't take those.
Of course not. Proper channels and paperwork. It's all here. Hold this for me. Yep. Here you go.
And interestingly, with Blade Runner too, I was in the middle of negotiating possibly joining a TV series for a lot of money, and I was like, I don't think this is the right thing to do. I wanted to go make All Creatures Here Below.
You can leave a baby at a hospital and they can't ask any questions.
No, she gets left alone back there and she can't go back there. She can't.
I need to see you in my office.
But if I did the TV show, I wasn't going to be allowed to do All Creatures Here Below. And I was really stressed because I thought, like, boy, is it irresponsible of me to turn down all this money to go make a movie that's not going to pay me anything, but feeling like, and at that point I had a kid and I was like, the stakes are getting higher. But I woke up on the morning that I needed to make the decision and I was really torn. And I got an email from Denis that said, I killed you in Prisoners. I'd like to bring you far into the future and kill you again in Blade Runner 2049. Would you like to come to Budapest and join me for a few weeks? And that answered right there. I was like, that's the sign I needed, because I knew I could do Blade Runner, which they only needed me for like a week. I could do Blade Runner and All Creatures Here Below. but there's no way I was going to be able to do those and the TV show. So I chose those, and I made the right choice.
Quick one as a curveball at the end, but I've done a random roles with Jackie Weaver, who I adore. But the two of you share a credit in Bird Box, and I think it's so interesting because of when that movie came out and the way that it just kind of took hold of the public consciousness.
What's going on? People describe seeing an entity that takes on the form of your worst fears.
Oh my God. What are you looking at? What did you see? What is wrong with you? Please stop it!
I'm just curious, like, your perspective on that, what it's like to just watch it blow up like that over Netflix. Of course, now, this is 3 years ago, so.
First of all, when I got to go to the premiere of Bird Box and Jackie Weaver was sitting, and we were both like downstairs in this weird green room, holding room at the theater where the premiere was, I was so like geeked out, man. I was so excited to meet her, and she was so nice, but I really blubbered too much and couldn't say enough. Zeitgeists are odd, and it's the mystery of what things that just take off and just all of a sudden become a thing. And being a tiny part of that film as it became this bizarrely like tidal wave zeitgeist movie moment was it was fascinating. It was baffling. And in the end, it was the thing that I was the most excited and grateful for about it was that it was shining such a light on the immense talent that I believe is Josh Mallerman, who wrote the book Bird Box, which my wife and I had been tracking that book years before this movie became a reality. His talent as a writer is next level. I mean, you know, he's Stephen King, like just way up. This guy is like a brilliant writer. And so I was so happy that the book was that the movie did what it did, because I felt like all shone a light on Josh's book. And I think it led a lot of people to go pick up that book and read it. And that was, to me, that was like the coolest part of that whole thing.